Hello and welcome to my webinar, Self-Care for Nonprofit Pros. I'm Jessica Cloud and real talk, we had a fantastic webinar yesterday on April 1st, and at the end of the webinar, I realized I forgot to hit record. So we all make mistakes, as Neil Gaiman says. If you're making a mistake, that means you're out there doing something. So we're going to embrace that. And today what I'm going to try to do is re-deliver and re-record the content that we talked about yesterday as best as I possibly can. So I'm here with you today to talk about self-care. And you can see there, self-care for nonprofit professionals. My specialty is in fundraising, particularly higher education fundraising, higher education annual giving. Specifically, I write and blog about that at realdealfundraising.com. And I offer free webinars from time to time as I feel the need is there and the demand is out there for a particular topic to be discussed, if I have something to offer in that area. And I'm going to talk a little bit about why I think I am one of the correct people to talk about self-care, because I've spent a long time creating my own self-care practice that integrates with my work. So yesterday we started off with a conversation about how we're all just doing today, because we all know that this coronavirus crisis has completely changed our industry and our world. It has turned everything upside down, and we just kind of had a moment to check in. And a lot of folks said that they were getting adjusted. A lot of folks said that they were really worried. A lot of folks said they were sad or overwhelmed trying to homeschool children and balance work now at the same time. So, there were a lot of feelings that we're all kind of just dealing with right now. And one of the things is that as we move forward with this webinar, hopefully we're going to talk about a lot of techniques that are going to help us manage our stress levels, manage our emotions like worry and overwhelm and burnout. And we're also going to just talk about how we can begin to advocate for changes. And self-care is a big part of that. It gives us the personal resilience and inner strength that's necessary to advocate for changes. We need our offices to become 21st century offices and let go of those 20th century ideas of top-down leadership. And what are we most worried about right now? And we talked about things that we're worried about. We are worried about loved ones who are vulnerable, who may even be sick right now. We're worried about the general state of leadership in the world and how we find a path forward through a crisis. We're worried about the economy and the stock market and what that means for particularly our major donors, who most of their gifts are going to come out of their assets. When they're worried, that means that they're less likely to be able to give, even though they want to give right now. And I'm a huge advocate for continuing to ask, even in a crisis, not to assume things about donors. But there's a lot to be worried about right now. There's a lot to be worried about as offices struggle with how to manage remote employees and kind of clinging to more traditional metrics in a very non-traditional situation. That is worrisome. Trying to balance everything. Again, if you have kids at home, you're trying to balance childcare and homeschooling with working and doing the best you can in a very, very untraditional situation. Okay, so let's just back up and say, who am I? My name is Jessica Cloud. I have 20 years of fundraising experience, over 20 years now. I started as a phone-a-thon caller at my university in 1999. And now I have my CFRE. If you're not in the fundraising side of nonprofits, that's a Certified Fundraising Executive. It's the second highest certification designation that a fundraiser can hold. I also have my Master of Arts in English Literature from the University of Southern Mississippi. I have a day job. I serve as the Vice President for Advancement for Star King School for the Ministry, but I love to teach and train and blog and write about all kinds of issues surrounding fundraising and nonprofits at my blog, Real Deal Fundraising. I have been a work from home fundraiser since July 2015. So when I started working for Star King, I live in Mississippi and I work for a school that's in California. So while I traveled a lot, when I wasn't traveling on the road or doing events, I was at home working from my home office and using Zoom a lot. So I feel like I have something to offer there. And I am a former homeschool mama. Until this year, we homeschooled both of our children. My husband and I, he's a journalist and has a flexible schedule, and so we kind of tag teamed it until this year. And so now we're kind of returning to that model, but it's still very much an adjustment. The children are in a environment of uncertainty, and they're missing their friends and their teachers. So it's still an adjustment for us, but I feel like we had a little bit of a head start and something to offer and help people right now. And I have tackled my own mental health issues around perfectionism. Imposter syndrome pops up really hard for me from time to time. I've dealt with anxiety, including panic attacks in the past. And I had a really hard, long struggle with postpartum depression after my daughter was born in 2009. I'll go so far as to say I'm a survivor of postpartum depression. So it's really a daily battle for maintenance to keep my zen and keep my cool and perform at a high level without stressing myself out. And that's really like the goal of self-care. So we can be our best selves, not just for our work, but also for our families. And we're going to talk a lot about all that good stuff in just a second. Okay. So what is self-care? Just gonna move my little box there. It's not just crystals and bubble baths, although there's nothing wrong with that. But it's gotten a bad rap and become sort of just a popular cliche word, right? Self-care is chocolate and wine and bubble baths. Well, no, it's not just that. Self-care has a formal definition. I'm going to take this one that I like from Psych Central. Self-care is any activity we do deliberately in order to take care of our mental, emotional, and physical health. It's a simple concept, but it's very difficult to do with consistency. And good self-care is important to improved mood and reduced anxiety. It also helps us be good in relationship with each other. So it helps promote healthy relationships and whatnot. And I am going to touch my face from time to time because my seasonal allergies are crazy here. I promise. I don't have coronavirus. I'm not infecting myself. Just itchy, itchy, itchy here in Mississippi. Okay, so I want to pull out some different pieces of this that I think are important. One, it's deliberate. So you have to plan for self-care. You have to be conscious about it. It doesn't just happen. You have to plan for it, schedule it, make room for it in your daily routine and your habits. You need to be consistent about it. It's really about doing the things that we don't necessarily naturally gravitate toward, kind of like a parent making the child brush their teeth even though they don't want to, because we know how important it is and how it will make you feel good in the long run. So it's about doing that for yourself, about keeping your promises to yourself. That's kind of a mantra that I use when I'm trying to implement a new habit. If I wake up in the morning and I want to grab my phone and start scrolling straight away instead of meditating, I just say, I keep my promises to myself. It's important. We're just sort of like parenting ourselves to make the best decisions possible. And it's not always about fun stuff, you know. It's not about chocolate bars. It's about doing, you know, the hard work, the sometimes boring work of taking good care of ourselves. And self-care is not selfish. It's not self-indulgent to take care of yourself. It actually will make you more balanced, patient, and kind. All qualities that promote healthy relationships, healthy families, healthy interactions in the workplace. Self-care helps us help others. So this is really a pro-social thing that you're doing when you're taking care of yourself. I think it's one of the most important things that we can do, because being in good mental health in this kind of a crisis situation is not only going to allow us to weather the isolation that we have to be under right now to flatten the curve, but it's going to help us long term in the recovery period. And the nonprofits are going to need us to recover. Nonprofits are hospitals. Nonprofits are universities, which are reeling with having to get to online learning right now and supporting students. This long period of recovery is going to require the fundraisers and the nonprofit staff to be in a good place of personal resilience to move forward and out of this crisis. All right, I just want to pause here because I was thinking about tackling the topic of self-care even before the coronavirus crisis happened. And the reason why is I came upon this article from the Chronicle of Philanthropy in August 2019. And so this is way before coronavirus was ever even a blip on the news. And it said that 30%, almost a third of fundraisers plan to leave not just fundraising, not just their current position, but the entire field of the nonprofit world within 2 years. That is a staggering statistic. And when they asked them why they plan on leaving the industry, 84% of them said they felt tremendous pressure to succeed. 55%, quote, often felt unappreciated at work. And 85% said lack of prospects for promotion. 83% said lack of succession planning. So we've got some problems in our industry. It's not particularly conducive to good self-care and job satisfaction. We've got leaders and boards that just don't get it, that just set unreasonable goals that are not based in reality. So how do we deal with these things? How do we stay in the game? And instead of leaving the industry entirely and having a whole new generation of people come in with the same problems and dealing with them, how do we stay in the game and advocate for change within our organization so that we can grow our own leaders and really change what it means to work in the nonprofit world? So this is not, self-care is not just an issue that's related to coronavirus. It's made more urgent and important because of it. But it's something that this is a big issue within our industry and our sector as a whole. So I want you to remember how important you are, particularly if you're program staff, totally important. You're the reason why the fundraisers are here. I'm saying this slide came from a very early blog post I did back in 2016. And it's just meant to really buoy the spirits of fundraisers who are under this tremendous pressure to succeed and to deliver all the time. So just keep in mind, you are important. You're important to the industry. You're important to your families. You're a force to be reckoned with. Your work enables students to get an education, hungry people to have something to eat, animals to find homes, so many other life-affirming things that the nonprofit world does. And all of this would not happen without the work that you and others like you do. You really are the superpower of the nonprofit world, the engine that makes this sector move, the fundraiser. And again, this is more broad than just the fundraiser. I want to support those fundraisers. They have a very difficult position, but program staff, like, you're super important too. You're the people out there doing the footwork. And that includes faculty if you're in higher education. They are really moving mountains to get students on board with online learning right now. So just total respect for program staff, faculty, teachers right now. Okay, this is my recommendation. So I have a PDF available for you following this webinar, and it's just meant to be sort of a place for you to brainstorm. It has 8 sectors of your life that I'm going to walk you through, and I'm going to have you think of some different ideas of what could you do. What are 3 things in each of these different sectors of your life that you could do on a regular or semi-regular basis that would improve your quality of life, that would improve your resilience, your personal strength, reduce your stress level, whatever it is, right? I want you to think outside the box, to not censor yourself, to write down whatever comes to mind in these categories that sounds like that it resonates with you. And then you don't have to feel any pressure. You're not going to do all of these things. We're going to pick a few. This is just meant to throw all the spaghetti at the wall and see what sticks. So stay with me as we explore each of these 8 areas, and then you're going to be able to download your self-care mind map and put this together. One of the questions that I had during the live webinar was, where did I come up with this? How did I have this process? So it's a combination of things. One, I've been through since about 2016, 2017, I've been on my own journey to put together my own daily practice, which is fairly extensive and would probably be overwhelming for most of you. So I'm not going to go into what all I do, but it definitely includes at least 5 minutes of daily meditation, 15 minutes of yoga daily, and getting 10,000 steps on my Fitbit as many days as I can. And I know when I've drifted from my daily practice, because I know I start to get snappy with my family, start to be a little impatient, I start to feel burnt out in my work. So I know when that happens that I need to return, which is one of those principles of meditation, right? If you've ever meditated, you know, when your attention starts to wander, you bring it back to whatever you're focusing on. So return. And that's exactly what you have to do with the self-care. So as you're building your practice, if you drift away from your daily habits that you know you want to do, you just bring yourself back to center. So I'm going to walk through these areas. The other thing that I do is I consume a lot of self-help literature. I have my entire life. I think it started with Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People when I was like 10 years old. So one of the books that I read, that I got into, and I listened to a lot of them on audiobooks. So one of them was called The Miracle Morning. And the Miracle Morning has like a system of 6 things that you're supposed to do first thing in the morning, and it sets yourself up for phenomenal days. And a lot of these are self-care routines. So it's like affirmations and visualization and meditation and exercise, reading and writing and journaling. So that's kind of where I started to put all of this together. And so it's been influenced by a lot of different things. But I think you'll get the idea when I start to go through the 8 areas and give you some ideas about how we're going to put this process together. Okay, here we go. So the self-care mind map. First area is mindset. So like mindset is so important, especially for a fundraiser. I'm thinking of doing a future webinar on abundance mindset for fundraisers because it is super important, especially if you didn't come from a privileged background, and I did not. My parents were a cop and a nurse. So the concept of having $10,000 to actually give away to something, not part of my reality growing up. So working on your abundance mindset is super important to fundraisers. But just in life, you've got to learn to quiet and clear your mind when you need to. That's meditation. You need to also fill your mind with that positive can-do attitude. And that can include affirmations, visualization, like I mentioned, journaling. I highly recommend a book called The Artist Way. If you consider yourself a creative person at all, or even if you don't, you might find that you could be. Read her book. She advocates a practice called morning pages. So you just take a composition notebook and you write stream of consciousness 3 pages in the morning. And it's not the great American novel. That's not the point. The point of the morning pages is to siphon off from your mind, like if you're a Harry Potter fan, like Dumbledore's pensive, to siphon off all the things that are bothering you. So it can be like a total bitch fest. You can just like gripe about whatever is bothering you that day and get it off of your mind. So that's the process of morning pages, and it frees yourself up to be creative in the rest of your day. And I've done this practice for quite a while, and I can say that it definitely is beneficial. So that's The Artist Way by Julia Cameron. I recommend that. Positive podcast. I hear that Brene Brown has a podcast out, and I'm so excited. If you're not a Brene Brown fan yet, check her out. She's got a Netflix documentary, and now she has a podcast. I'm super excited to listen to it. Audiobooks, I already said, I listen and consume a lot of audiobooks. Even if you're in isolation right now, which most people are under some kind of shelter-in-place order, you can check with your local library and see if your library card allows you access to Hoopla Digital. So I use this app. I get, I think, 8 audiobooks downloads a month that I can listen to through Hoopla. It's free through my local library, and it's amazing. I know a lot of people doing social media detoxes, social media Sabbaths, where they just turn that off for a while to clear their head and get away from the negativity that you find out on a lot of social media these days. So think about which 3 of those things appeal to you. And by no means is this a comprehensive list. If you have other things that you like to do that you think you would like to do that fit into that category of mindset, please feel free to put it down. This is absolutely not exhaustive. intellect. You are on a webinar for work and for self-care. So you obviously understand the value of continuing education, but I will challenge you to make sure that you are developing interest outside of work, outside of fundraising. It makes you a more well-rounded, happy person, and it keeps your mind sharp. And I'm always taking lessons from other things that I'm consuming and bringing into my mind. So I love documentaries. I watch a lot of documentaries. I love World War II documentaries. I love stuff about the British royal family. Bonus if it's about both, which there are some of those out there, and love them. Most people have a stack of books sitting around that they've been meaning to read. I know I always do. I wish I had more time for reading, and hopefully once everybody kind of settles into a routine here in shelter-in-place isolation, I'm going to get some more reading done. YouTube is a great way to learn new skills. I mean, goodness, if you've ever wanted to watercolor, you can just pop that into Instagram or Google and you can get all kinds of instruction on stuff like that. So this is a double whammy. This is learning a new skill and feeding your intellect, but it's also very creative and very playful. And it gives you something repetitive to do, which is, we'll talk about that in a minute, but that's definitely proven to be a stress reliever and helps you function in times of crisis. Saying no. Now, I know it feels like we have really been having to give up a lot of things lately, but I would challenge you that there's probably more that you can let go of. So what's taking up your mental space right now? What's taking up your time? Are you scrolling on Facebook reading all of the bad news about coronavirus? Maybe you need to limit your news. Maybe you need to do something more abstract, like you just avoid overstimulation. Have a screen-free day, right? Maybe you need to give up some Zoom meetings. I've had people say, I'm burnt out on Zoom right now. Can we talk on the phone? Yes, absolutely. And it was really kind of nice just to have that downtime, or just asking if you can turn your video off during a Zoom meeting, like that kind of stuff. What can you just say no to right now? And what can you let go of in the abstract, like the really abstract? Is there some guilt that you can let go of? Is there a relationship that you can repair? Or is there people that you need to kind of distance yourself from, even emotionally right now? Okay, feelings, so important. We don't talk about this in a work atmosphere very much, but like we have to deal with our feelings. If we don't acknowledge and process our feelings, they will appear either in the body as illness or in our relationships in terms of negative patterns like addiction and codependency, right? So we have to deal with this stuff. So online therapy is becoming a bigger and bigger thing. Can you Zoom with your therapist if you have an existing relationship? There's a lot of online therapy businesses that you can get hooked up with. Also, I have to say, online 12-step meetings available for people struggling with different kinds of addiction, people struggling with codependency, people who have family members struggling with addiction. All of these, Al-Anon, AA, NA, CODA, they all have online and phone meetings that you can participate in. Some of them have Facebook groups that you can participate in for support. You're not alone. You're not alone right now, even though we're isolated. So, reaching out in these kind of more formal ways for complex problems, do that. Having a good social group, dinner with FaceTime friends. I've heard of folks, kind of propping their phone up or putting it on the tripod and having dinner with their friends this way. Zoom rooms for just kind of hanging out and seeing people and interacting right now, especially if you're alone, especially if you don't have a spouse or partner or kids at your house. You need that kind of interaction. So it's really important. And then even stuff like, if there's a grudge that you need to let go of, can you write a letter to that person? Whether or not you plan on sending it, just get it out there, get it out on paper, and then either burn it or throw it in a drawer if you don't want to send it. So there's ways we need to face our feelings right now, and it's going to help us have more personal resilience going forward. Okay, the next 4. All right. Body. We have to take care of our physical selves right now. And so the 2 most obvious ways are wash your hands. I'm going to recommend that you check out a YouTube video by Alton Brown. So the host of the food show Good Eats. He did a whole science lesson about why washing your hands with soap is the most effective way to kill germs and viruses, and it talked about proper technique for doing that. Stay home. Don't go out. Don't go out in groups for sure. Make sure that you're doing your part to flatten the curve, as well as not become infected yourself. But then there's other ways that we have to take care of ourselves all the time. Exercise, so important, exercise. And I recommend that you do a lot of at-home exercise, or get out and about if you can walk, or do, bicycle riding, things like that. It's really important right now. If you're not used to working from home, I can attest that it's very easy to not understand the amount of incidental exercise you get just by going to an office every day. So you will have issues with aches and pains and putting on weight that you didn't think you had if you're not making a conscious effort to exercise. Yoga. I'm a huge fan of yoga. I already said I try to do 15 minutes a day. It's a kind of a twofer. You get the mindset modulation as well as the exercise. It helps so much with stress relief and pain reduction. I highly recommend you check out Yoga with Adriene, Adriene, just one N. Yoga with Adriene. She's amazing. There were a couple people on the webinar yesterday that love Yoga with Adriene as well. She has some phenomenal playlists that are great for beginners. One is yoga that takes less than 10 minutes. And those are fantastic introductions. She has all kinds of poses, videos that describe basic poses in detail for you. And she has a playlist called Yoga for Uncertain Times right now, which is great. And if you're stuck on a Zoom meeting for a really long time, she has a whole playlist dedicated to neck and upper back tension. So if you've been kind of like slumping over a laptop, that's a great playlist to check out. Other things we can do, the list is pretty much endless in terms of what kinds of habits we can develop to really take care of our body. Sleep, getting extra sleep, healthy food, trying out new recipes that are really good for you and healthy right now with what you can get your hands on. Taking your vitamins if your diet's not as varied as it should be. Floss and brush, obviously. But I think we sometimes brush our teeth, but we forget the flossing part and how important that is. So that could be a habit that you want to implement, right? Okay, spirit. All right, you could be the most hardcore atheist in the world, and I consider myself to be a non-theist. I'm a Unitarian Universalist, but also a non-theist. But you still need to attend to your spiritual side. And what do I mean by that? So, like, even if that word spirit kind of makes you bristle a little bit, like, you should think about finding a spiritual home. So many churches are doing online services right now, so you don't have to limit yourself to churches that are in your actual area. If you are not a traditional believer in religious terms, you can check out Unitarian Universalist services. The Church of the Larger Fellowship is our digital arm, but also you can check out ethical culture societies, which are sort of a humanist approach to church, which is kind of cool. Other things you can just do on your own, you can read poetry or inspirational literature. I like to write poetry along those same lines. And I've had a couple pieces of my pandemic poetry published recently, which is kind of cool. Connect with nature. So to the extent that you can, again, getting outdoors is really good for everybody. Connecting with your family, whether they live in the house with you or whether they live somewhere else. It's important to check in and check on folks and make sure that, those ties are really strong, even though we're physically apart. And music and especially singing is really important. There's so much research that singing is kind of crucial to, kind of performing optimally as a human, and it reduces stress and it improves our pulmonary function. It does so many things for us. So, play music every day, sing along. I mean, who else is going to hear you at this point? So, play. All right. So let's talk about play. Play has a few characteristics. So you're thinking of your three things in the play category. Play is pleasurable. That means this category should have no shoulds, okay? So nothing that you should do should go into the play category. This is all want to, okay? The second thing is play is something that you could feel like you could do all day, something that has like a timeless quality about it. So, you know, for me, I come back to the watercolor example. My daughter and I like to paint together, and we just kind of fool around with it. And sometimes the results are great, and sometimes they're not. But we have a lot of fun doing it, and you know, it's something that's very playful for us to create art together. Crafts. There's a lot of research that repetitive motion crafts like cross stitch, crochet, knitting, latch hook, these kinds of things are really good for you, especially if you're trying to get your mind off of something. So it's almost like you're replacing repetitive thoughts with repetitive motion. So now would be a great time to learn how to do that and take that up in sort of a playful, experimental way. Again, singing, dancing, all very good for you. And bicycling, all of that's very good for you right now, as well as it doubles as exercise, right? And games are great because every time you play a game with your kids, you're playing card games, you're playing board games, that doubles as schoolwork because they don't even know it, but they're learning strategy, they're learning numbers and math and different kinds of logic when they're playing these games. So always a great thing. Again, put nothing on your list that's a should. Everything has to be fun in the play category. But lots and lots and lots of choices. That's by no means a comprehensive list. And not so guilty pleasures. Wow, this is like my favorite category because really this is where we get into it, right? This is where we get into the crystal and bubble bath type of self-care, right? You can let loose a bit here. So this is where you want 3 things that people might consider guilty pleasures. So something that you maybe are a little embarrassed about admitting to somebody that you like. So like for me, I love baths. Like it's a total stereotype, right? Like the mom who is just harried and wants to get away. If you're old enough to remember the commercials, Calgon, take me away, like the bubble bath. You know, it's a little embarrassing, but I don't care. I love my bath time. I treasure that time. And when I have like a really bad day, running upstairs and getting a bath away from everybody else is an absolute lifesaver. So the other thing for me is show tunes. I love show tunes. I have a whole collection of vinyl records of Broadway and movie musical show tunes because basically no one else wanted them and they were all $1 each. So, you know, putting on something like that and sharing that music with my children and watching how much it annoys my husband, it's fantastically fortifying. So I encourage you to look at what you do. So grooming, there's no reason why you can't give yourself a little at-home mani-pedi right now. If you enjoy makeup, you know, do some makeup tutorials or just dress up and share that on Facebook. You know, fashion. I've seen people dressing up in formal attire to do TikTok videos right now. That's fun, and it's all vitalizing for the rest of us out there to see folks doing that. Having movie marathons. You want to watch the entire Harry Potter series? Go for it. Lord of the Rings? Yes, do that. Binge watching TV series. Yesterday I mentioned I just restarted 30 Rock. I'm pretty excited about it. I love Liz Lemon, and Alec Baldwin in that is amazing to me. And there were a couple of people who were in the chat that were like, yes, 30 Rock. Scrubs too. I've probably seen like 8 times through the whole series. And making and eating treats. I mean, finding, again, new foods to cook right now. Cooking in general could be one of the things in many of these different categories. Now, I'll say this. So, of course, we are not going to want to do that all the time. If we just did nothing but watch, you know, Lord of the Rings marathons while eating treats that we made that day, we would not be furthering our best self-care. So those categories, that not so guilty pleasures category, is going to be sometimes. And I'm going to talk about exactly how you can structure that into your plan, and it plays a really important role. So what I want you to do next, this will be the second PDF that you'll find on the website. It's the 90-day healthy habit tracker. I want you to look at the 24 things that you have on your sheet and find 5 of them that you think would add the most value to your life. if you did them almost every day. So let's say 80 to 90% adherence, okay? For me, again, I told you 3 of my things are the 5 minutes of meditation, 15 minutes of yoga, 10,000 steps a day. I also try to clean my house for 15 minutes just to keep on top of things. And if I usually I'll go longer than 15 minutes because I want to finish whatever I'm working on, right? But if I set the timer, if I'm like really not loving doing it, I'll set the timer for 15 minutes. And when the timer goes off, I drop whatever I'm doing and walk away. And then I'll come back to it tomorrow. So cleaning for 15 minutes. And then usually I'm also doing something else like the journaling, or I'm doing creative stuff to just try to bolster my self-care throughout the day. So you have to pick what those 5 things are going to be for you. And again, today, as I'm talking about this, it's only April 2nd. So you've got plenty of time to start for the month of April and start tracking this. Yesterday was perfect. So the folks that were on the live webinar, they're already on it. They're working on their 5 healthy habits right now. And I'm going to say, try them all for at least a week. And if it doesn't feel like it's working, if you put down that you want to do 20 minutes of meditation and it's driving you crazy and there's no way you can fit 20 minutes in, cross that 20 out and change it to 5 minutes. Okay. And then after a week, if you're like, I don't like yoga, yoga is just terrible, I'd rather run for 20 minutes a day. Cool. Cross yoga out, change it to running, and then continue on from there. Give everything a week or 2 to just see how that habit fits into your life though, okay, before you cross it out. But adjust accordingly as you go along. At the end of April, if you have had, 80 to 90% adherence, we're not looking for perfection, just progress, not perfection. But if you've had 80 to 90% adherence for the month of April, I guarantee you're going to see a whole different level of change in your life, in your quality of life, in your personal resilience, all of that stuff. So I'm going to tell you a little story. Back in 2017, I decided I was going to set myself a 30-day challenge, and I was only going to do 2 habits, just 2. I was going to do 15 minutes of yoga a day and 10,000 steps on my Fitbit every single day. And I can tell you, at the end of that 30 days, I successfully completed it. And at the end of that 30 days, it was amazing. My mind was sharp and clear. I had lost a little bit of weight, but I was eating like pasta and cannoli when I was traveling to Boston. It was fantastic. So I really didn't like restrict my food at all, but I lost a little bit of weight. And when I woke up in the morning, I didn't have like aches and pains or tension anywhere. It was really just nothing short of remarkable. So I was sitting with my aunt and I was telling her all of the amazing benefits that I had gleaned from this experiment. And she stared at me very seriously and said, "Why the hell did you stop?" And I said, "I don't know. I guess it was because I had this challenge. It was 30 days and now I'm not doing it anymore." So I realized I really need to build this into my life in a more sustainable fashion. So instead of trying to get 100% adherence for a certain period of time, just really try to work this into your life at 70, 80, 90% of days you're doing these healthy things. There's going to be days when you twist your ankle, or multiple days when you twist your ankle, and you're not going to get those 10,000 steps. There's going to be days when you have too many meetings and things are too crazy to get your meditation and yoga in, or whatever it is that's on your list. And so, I promise you're going to get the benefits if you can do the 70 to 80%. Don't strive for the 100. Go for sustainable progress, not perfection. And then look at April, see what you liked from April, what you want to keep moving into month 2, and then add 5 more additional ones. And just build your plan from there. And don't make it onerous. When you feel like you've got your particular combination that works for you, run with it, okay? And you can print off as many of these 90-day trackers as you want and just go for it, okay? So let's see. What's next? Okay. Now I'm going to talk to you about the things that either are on that not so guilty pleasures list, that are things that we probably shouldn't do every single day because they're a little too indulgent and not necessarily the best for our health, and the things that maybe are not you can't do them every day. So unless you live right beside a national park right now, you're probably not going to be able to go hiking every single day and like commune with nature in that way. So I think you should take those items that were on your self-care mind map and create what I call an emergency indulgence list. So we all have those days that just everything starts to fall apart and you just can't really get a hold of your anxiety, your overwhelm, your burnout. So just a couple of days ago, my 5-year-old son, who's not used to being cooped up, was trying to sit at the dining room table to do his schoolwork. He was not sitting properly in the ladder back chair, and the ladder back chair had, you know, the two things that stick up out of the top. It tipped backwards with him in it. He's fine, luckily, but it went through 2 of the panes in our doors to our sunroom. So we had broken glass everywhere, had to clean it up, had to get the kids out, repair the panes, at least temporarily. And so it was a really stressful morning. It was like just exactly the kind of morning that was going to lead to a migraine later in the day. And that is exactly the sort of situation where you need to pull out, when you get a quiet moment, your emergency indulgence list and say, what can I possibly do on this list that will help me get back to equilibrium? That's what that list is for. It's for those really stressful days that are out of the ordinary, and you need to pull out that list. Sometimes a pint of Ben & Jerry's is exactly what it takes to get you back to emotional equilibrium. Not something you want to do every day, but having those coping mechanisms in your back pocket would be a really good thing. So, okay, now pausing a moment for those who are more activist minded among us, who are saying, Jessica, it's really not our responsibility to do all of this self-care, just to deal with the shitty systemic environment that we're put into. And I hear you. I already said earlier in this webinar that there needs to be some major changes at a lot of shops. I was on a couple of forums where people were, as late as just 2 weeks ago, still being made to come into work as fundraisers. That's unacceptable. Those offices should have been prepared to go into a situation like this. Some of these offices were very 20th century minded, still making the receptionist come in, not wanting to forward the calls, wanting everyone to come in because of fairness issues, which in this particular situation makes everyone more vulnerable to disease, and is unacceptable. People still buying desktops for their staff. Why does everyone not have laptops in this environment, in this day and age? So yes, we need to be the squeaky wheels to advocate for change. We need to be the ones saying, can we update our preparedness plans? Can we get flexible work hours? Can we get better childcare options for folks? Can we get better insurance options? Being that squeaky wheel for change in our office environments takes that level of personal resilience and inner strength that a good self-care program is going to provide you. If you get burnt out, you get overwhelmed, you get extra worried and depressed, then you're going to want to leave the nonprofit industry, like the 30% of fundraisers that were cited in that article. And you're not going to be able to make change for those that come behind you and the generations after. But if you do take good care of yourself, you can be that squeaky wheel. You can make that change. So it has to start with us. So, and I'll just say this here too now, grant grace to everyone right now. Start with yourself, because you're going to get frustrated. You're going to, snap at someone and feel remorseful for it. Grant yourself grace, and grant it to your children and your spouse if you have one. Grant it to your family members. Grant it to your coworkers. Please grant it to your coworkers right now, and to the people that you serve, to your donors, to the people, like in my business, it's the students. Make sure that everybody just gets some grace right now. And please remember the people that you interact with in the world, particularly cashiers, and the delivery folks. If you're getting your groceries delivered, please tip them well. Please tip them well right now. They're putting themselves and the elders that they live with at risk right now. And we need to just all take care of each other at this moment. Okay, So questions, we really didn't have a ton of questions yesterday on the webinar. Like I did mention that someone asked, how did I develop this? I already kind of addressed that. And I don't recall any other questions that we had. We had a few kind of comments, but so, you know, I do want to encourage you to understand that self-care is not selfish. That is one of the biggest takeaways of this webinar. And I think you need to remember it has to be deliberate, it has to be consistent. And in order to build your plan, you know, you're going to have to just start somewhere. Brainstorm with the self-care mind map or a journal if you just want to use that. Pick a few things, try them out, 1 to 2 weeks at least, and then adjust accordingly. Again, adjust the amount of time you want to spend doing that thing, adjust the thing itself, replace it with something else that works better for you. Do what you need to do to build your own practice. Remember how much you are needed. Not only are we going to need to have good mental and physical health now to weather this time of shelter in place and isolation, but you're going to be key to the recovery of the whole nonprofit sector. Please take care of yourself. Habits. You can quote me on this. It is not our grand gestures that keep us healthy in body, mind, and spirit, but the small things that we do daily. I tend to be a gal that likes to batch things and plow through and get it done. But I have realized over the last few years that there's wisdom in doing a little bit every day. And those things are really key. So that's why I'm focused on those daily habits in terms of talking about self-care with you. Remember that indulgences are okay. In fact, they're essential because sometimes we have a really out of equilibrium day and we have to have an indulgence that's on the other side of the pendulum to pull us back to equilibrium. So they're going to come in handy when you feel that anxiety, that burnout, that overwhelm coming on. So keep that list, emergency list of indulgences, handy, and that's based off of your self-care mind map. And again, working on yourself right now will put you in a better position to advocate for change and be that squeaky wheel, both now and in the future. Okay, action items. Download your self-care mind map off of this page and generate as many ideas as you possibly can. Don't censor yourself. It'll be a great resource for you later. Start your habit tracker. Again, it's only April 2nd as I'm recording this, so we're right at the beginning of the month of April. So do give it a try. Pick 4 to 5, try them out for a month or a couple of weeks at least. If it doesn't feel right or you're not experiencing any benefit, throw it out, pick another. You know, this is yours. There's no exam. So just you're doing this literally for you, and no one else has to even see it or know that you're undertaking this project. And then encourage your office to become a fully 21st century office. Encourage them to leave behind all of that 20th century top-down leadership mindset where we all have to be like watched and made sure that we're being productive. Build your personal resilience so that you can do that. You're going to have that inner strength to advocate for change. Okay, I want to encourage you to connect with me. So if you're accessing this webinar at this point, you've been on my website. So I hope that you will follow me on some social networks. So I'm on Twitter at @JCloudRealDeal, and you can tweet me questions or comments there. Had a great tweet chat last week with Lynn Wester, donor relations guru. She participated, and we did that on hashtag self-care #4 nonprofit pros, self-care for nonprofit pros. Check out that hashtag. You can read more about kind of our discussion about COVID-19 and self-care and how that all relates to our business. I'm also on Instagram. I just got active on Instagram again, so it's not on the slide, but I do go live on Instagram. I did one last week about self-care. So check me out and follow me on Instagram. So if I go live there again and do kind of a mini webinar discussion kind of thing, that you can catch me there. And that's at the same handle, @JCloudRealDeal. I'm on Facebook. We have a Real Deal fundraising page on Facebook. You can find me there. I also host a group on Facebook called Real Deal Annual Giving. So I hope that you'll consider joining that group. If you work in annual giving, it'll be really useful for you to interact with folks there. And on LinkedIn, you can connect with me directly, Jessica Cloud, CFRE. And I host a group on LinkedIn for phone-a-thon managers. And I've actually had a lot of people joining that lately. So that group's probably going to get a little more active. Again, I started in phone-a-thon. I used to work for Ruffalo Cody, which is now Ruffalo No Levitz. I know a lot about phone-a-thon, and that's why I started that group. So I'm there just to provide resources. There's also a lot of resources on my blog for phone-a-thon managers. So I encourage you to check that out. You can find the categories on like the right-hand sidebar of my blog. So please reach out and connect with me. I love to hear from people, and I really, really feel strongly about, I want to hear how this works for you. So if you fill out your mind map, like just send me a tweet or an email and let me know what you put on your list. What are the 4 things that you're trying out this month? And if you do it for a couple of weeks and you experience some benefits, I just want to hear about that. Like just write me. I'm a real person. I'm out here. I read everything that comes through my email, my blog. I am not a big shop with like staff that's helping me man any of this. You have direct access to me, and I really want to know, is this method working for you? And I want to hear your stories. So please reach out. I love this topic. I'm hoping to write more about it soon. And I will be sending you my Fundraising Friday emails with the FUN, the fun, putting the fun in fundraising, Fundraising Friday emails that are just full of resources that I've encountered throughout the week that I feel like would be helpful for you. Funny things that I've encountered, some like funny memes and graphics and cartoons. And also you'll also get my latest blog post. I put a new blog post out every Thursday. I go live on Facebook and Instagram from time to time. I'm hoping to host more tweet chats coming up soon. So just going to be really active coming up in the next few months. And the last thing that I'll say is that because everybody is really looking for continuing ed opportunities, I'm thinking of hosting more webinars coming up soon, as well as I'm designing an annual giving fundamentals course for, I find middle managers in annual giving and fundraising in general hire people on, they're dealing with a lot of turnover, and they don't have time to train their people, but they also don't have time to not train their people. So I'm creating a fully online course that covers all the fundamental areas of annual giving, really focusing in on the analytics and data side and the statistics associated with annual giving, as well as the art side, the design and the language and the writing. So if you're interested in helping me look over my outline for that course, I will make sure that you get a great discount. So write me an email and say that you would love to help me take a look at that course outline. And you'll get a good discount when I open the course up, because I'm thinking of fast tracking it and getting it out there in May or June, because people are really looking for opportunities right now to study and use their time wisely during this period of shelter in place. So I do hope that you're taking care of each other, washing your hands frequently, and that you're going to fill out your self-care mind map as soon as we get off of this webinar. And thank you for being patient with me when I didn't press record yesterday, but I do hope that this definitely covers the same amount of material that you got during the live webinar. And if you're just joining me for the first time, I'm so glad that you're here and that you're joining the conversation with us today. Thanks so much, and have a good one.